Hello everybody, I am very excited to be releasing this weird and different style of Build with Bill. Today I'm going to go over my build for Pathfinder 2E for the upcoming campaign that I will be playing on Master the Game RPG, Master the Game with Juce. I played Pathfinder 1st edition when it first came out, after my group migrated from D&D 3rd 3.5, and it was a lot of fun. And then 5th edition D&D came out, we hopped back to that, and then a couple of years ago, 2nd edition Pathfinder came out. I didn't really have an interest in learning about it until I was invited to play on the upcoming show on Juce's channel. And when that opportunity came, I started to look into options. And there are a lot of really good YouTube channels that have a lot of informative and helpful videos for Pathfinder 2E. I watched a lot of videos, and I read through the book. Now, the book is very intimidating. It's kind of scary because it's a huge book. But in essence, what I learned is that it's not that hard to build a character in this game, and it's also not as intimidating as you might think. And basically, the way that the character creation process goes is you pick out your ancestry, and then your heritage within that ancestry, your background, and your class, A, B, C. So what I have here is, this is my character sheet. When I was looking at the options, I decided that I wanted to make a goblin. Why? Because I've never made a goblin. I've never played a goblin character in any fantasy role-playing game. So I was like, why not? So I chose Goblin as the ancestry, and then the heritage, they give you a few options to choose from. I chose Unbreakable Goblin. So in my Goblin build notes, what I did was as I was making the character, I kind of took notes, right? So as a Goblin, when you choose that ancestry, you get a +2 to Dex, a +2 to Charisma. In other words, these are called boosts. And when you're making a character in this game, everybody starts off at 10 across the board. And then you get boosts and sometimes flaws that modify those scores, right? So your strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, charisma all start off at 10. As a goblin, I got a +2 to dex, a +2 to charisma, and a third free boost that I got to choose. I chose constitution because goblins are little and squishy, and I think having hit points at low level is kind of important. Now, some races just have some boosts. Other races have a mix of boosts and flaws. Goblins have a flaw of -2 to wisdom, which is totally okay because that worked out fine with my concept. What I also looked into was the ability to kind of adjust my character so that he could become a little bit more of what I wanted him to be. And that involved a little bit of digging, but there's a thing called voluntary ability flaws. And basically, you take a big hit on a couple things in order to get a boost in another thing. With this, it also made sense for my goblin. I took the voluntary ability flaws -2 to strength, -2 to intelligence. So he's a little guy. He's dex-based. He's not strength-based. And he's also kind of, stereotypically not the brightest bulb in the goblin bunch. So he has a -2 to intelligence, and those both worked out fine. But that gave me the additional boost to dex that I needed for this guy to start off at first level like a freaking superhero of dexterity. So the next thing was Unbreakable, which is one of the heritages. So within the Goblin ancestry, and if you're not familiar with this from Pathfinder's perspective, basically if you're used to other fantasy role-playing games, ancestry has replaced the term race. I don't know how much of a significant deal that makes. If it's just semantics, you decide. But within each race or ancestry are heritages. So the different kinds of, maybe you would call them sub-races. But, they are the different heritages within a ancestry. And there are some really cool ones for goblins. I liked this one called Unbreakable Goblin. Now, the reason why I liked it, to be honest with you, started off as being mechanical advantage. Because what it does is it gives you the max 10 hit points from my ancestry instead of 6. So instead of starting off as a first level Goblin Rogue with 6 hit points, I could start off with 10, which is pretty big at first level. Now, that doesn't happen every level. This is just like a one-time deal when you make the character. But I thought it was important enough to do. But then as I read this, I realized that it has a lot of fun role-playing potential as well. Unbreakable Goblin Heritage is described as you're able to bounce back from injuries easily due to an exceptionally thick skull, which thick skull has a double entendre in this, in terms of how I plan to play this character. Cartilaginous bones or some other mixed blessing. You gain 10 hit points from your ancestry instead of 6. Now here's the clincher. This is what I thought would be really fun and also cool. When you fall, reduce the falling damage you take as though you had fallen half the distance. When I read that, I immediately pictured Scrim like just falling down a mountain, right? Or like just tumbling off of a building or whatever kind of hilarity might ensue. And then, you know, smacking on the ground and being injured, but like getting back up and being like, ouch, that hurt. I imagine it being useful and fun. So that's how I kind of landed on Unbreakable Goblin. Okay, then we get to background. Now, if you're familiar with 5th edition D&D, backgrounds are kind of similar, except in Pathfinder 2e, there are a crazy amount of backgrounds. Just a crazy amount of backgrounds. Your backgrounds also give you boosts and certain kinds of things like training in certain skills. So for the acrobat, it made sense because I pictured Scrim as being a goblin rogue who had kind of integrated into society by being part of a traveling circus. That was kind of my whole niche for that. And that, you know, he would have learned to be somebody who pleased his audience and was rewarded for doing a good job. And that is kind of his very basic, simple motivation in life, is to make friends and to earn the loyalty and respect and maybe earn some treats from his friends for doing a good job. And that's the simple pleasure in his life. So the acrobat thing worked out really well. It gave me a +2 boost to Dex and Wisdom. So this bumped up my Dexterity score pretty significantly now, and it fixed my Wisdom. Because remember, I took that as a Goblin, you get a -2 to Wisdom. This reset my Wisdom to 10, so it went back up to 10, which is good. And it's not, you might be thinking, well, like, why does Wisdom matter? Well, it kind of matters because, like other games, Wisdom is tied to your perception. So we'll get into that mechanically and how that all works. Then, of course, you get some additional skills. As the acrobat background provides, you are trained in acrobatics and circus lore. And you get the steady balance feat. So let's sideways for a second here and look at skills. So here are the skills. And just like other games, you know, you have acrobatics, arcana, athletics, crafting, blah, 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 blah. There's a whole bunch of different skills. But here's what mechanically makes these kind of interesting with Pathfinder, right? So you see these boxes over here. If you are trained in a skill, that's like, think of that as like basic proficiency in the skill. Then you have expert, then you have master, then you have legendary. So those 4 levels kind of differentiate your training mastery within every given skill. And where that differs is that it's not just level based, right? So you could gain levels and never get higher than trained in a certain skill. So these kind of make your mechanical components different. So each one of these steps is a different bonus to trying out that skill, right? And I'm pretty sure it's 2, 4, 6, 8. But that's kind of the idea between trained skills. So he picks up acrobatics and he picks up circus lore. I don't know how much circus lore is going to come into use. Maybe it won't at all, but it's just part of the package. It's what I get as an acrobat. All right, next we get to the C in the ABCs, which is class. I chose to go with Rogue. And for those of you wondering, yes, Scrim, the concept for this character, comes from the NPC from Season 4 of D&D with high school students, the Medusas and the Vixens. Scrim is just a goblin NPC who, you know, was kind of the inspiration for this concept, for this character concept for Pathfinder. So Scrim is a rogue. As a rogue, he gets a +2 dex bonus. So that's another boost, right? So let's add him up real quick. As a goblin, he gets 2. For the voluntary ability flaw, he gets 2. So that puts him at 12, 14. And then he gets 2 more as an acrobat. That gets him up to 16. And then as a rogue, he gets 2 more. That gets him up to 18. So he has a big fat 18 dex as a first level goblin rogue. His racket, which is kind of like, I guess in D&D, the equivalent 5th edition would be his rogue archetype. His racket is thief, which means he's trained in thievery. So again, if we look down at the skills, thievery is at the bottom. I got that little box checked, trained in thievery. Then, because rogues in this game are just as stupidly skilled and arguably overskilled as they are in other games, he obtains expert in perception. So if we go to perception, you'll notice that perception up here on the character sheet is not part of the skills, because perception is basically a derived stat. So it's not an ability score, and it's not a skill like perception is a skill in D&D 5th edition. Perception is basically a derived stat that includes your wisdom, which you'll see that 0. Because I have a 10 wisdom, I get no modifier either way. I don't have a negative, I don't have a plus. And the proficiency. So as an expert, he gets his proficiency bonus is 4 plus his level. That's why that number is 5. So he's a level 1 rogue. He has expert rating in that, so it's 4 plus his level. And that's helpful to know. Okay, so when he's making perception checks, that's what I'm looking for. That 5, that's what I'm looking for. So he gets expert in perception. Then he's trained in fortitude saving throws. So that's where we have this marker right here. He has expert saving throws in reflexes and will. There and there. So pretty good saving throws. Rogues are pretty solid in this game. Then he is trained in stealth. So there's that. Plus 7 more skills. And this is what I mean by the ridiculous. Rogues in D&D 5th edition are definitely skill monkeys, but in Pathfinder, they are like skill gorillas. And if nobody's coined that before, I am hereby patenting, I call it skill gorilla. It's when you have a skill monkey who has epic skill levels. And so I chose a bunch of things that I thought would fit with Scrim's concept. Number 1 is athletics. And the reason why I chose that is because, I could see Scrim being in a circus, and of course acrobatics would come in handy, but athletics might be, important as well. And deception, because I think that he's not so much a great negotiator as he is, maybe spinning tall tales. And remember, and this is just kind of a meta thing. When I think about deception, it's not always just about lying. It's not always about like malicious deception. Sometimes deception is just, it could be kind of an innocent bending of the truth or a spinning a tall tale. So I kind of see Scrim's use of deception as being more like, spinning a yarn and kind of bending the truth than it is just outright lying. Diplomacy, I think, would be something that would be realistic because, again, he is from a minority heritage that a lot of people aren't comfortable with. A lot of people aren't just cool with goblins. So, maybe he had to learn to be diplomatic and to understand the social nuances and interactions with people. Again, diplomacy is a term. It doesn't mean that he's like negotiating trade agreements between nations. It just means that he knows how to work diplomatically in a social context. Then we have intimidation. Now, why would this little scrawny goblin be intimidating? A lot of people think that size is everything when it comes to intimidation. I disagree. I think a creature with an enormous grin and filed down sharpened teeth could be very scary. just like a small doll with a knife, aka Chucky. So intimidation is something that he could have. Medicine, I think, life on the road, injuring yourself, being injured, just being that little side of him that wants to help people. He has a good heart and he has good intentions. Sometimes he screws things up because he's not the smartest dude. But, helping people might be something that he would like to do. So I thought medicine would work. Performance, for obvious reasons, being able to clown around, being able to do whatever it is that he might need to do in the context of the circus. And then lastly, survival, because that's a skill that he would have had to have picked up while kind of learning to navigate this world that could be harsh to goblins. All right, then he gets a rogue feat, nimble dodge. And then a general skill or feat, incredible initiative. So those are things that I chose, and I'm going to go over the feats here in my build notes. And what I did was I listed them and I wrote where they were from, right? So from the Goblin Ancestry, he picked up very sneaky. Taller folk rarely pay attention to the shadows at their feet, and you take full advantage of this. You can move 5 feet farther when you take the sneak action up to your speed. In addition, as long as you continue to use sneak actions and succeed at your stealth check, you don't become observed if you don't have cover or greater cover and aren't concealed at the end of the sneak action, as long as you have cover or greater cover or are concealed at the end of your turn. The significance of that is pretty huge because Pathfinder can be a little challenging, and to be honest, at this point, I'm still wrapping my head around stealth in general and the differences between being observed and noticed and unnoticed and concealed and hidden and sneaking and stealth. There's a lot of terminology that all have very specific mechanics related to the rules. But the whole point is that I picked that because this is a little dude who sneaks, and I thought it would be kind of smart for him to be very sneaky, so that benefits him greatly. From the acrobat, I gained steady balance. That was part of the background benefits. Steady balance is you can keep your balance easily, even in adverse conditions. Whenever you roll a success using the balance action, you get a critical success instead. You are not flat-footed while attempting to balance on narrow surfaces and uneven ground. Thanks to your incredible balance, you can attempt an acrobatics check instead of a reflex save to grab an edge. That's pretty cool. And it fits with the concept. From the rogue class, nimble dodge, you deftly dodge out of the way, gaining a +2 circumstance bonus to AC against the triggering attack. Great. So dodging is probably important. From the rogue general feat, incredible initiative, you react more quickly than others can. You gain a +2 circumstance bonus to initiative rolls. So all of those feats are just things that I picked because I thought they would fit well. And they might turn out to be mechanically cool, or they might not work for me because I'm still learning my way around the system. But the point is that a lot of times the best way to learn is to try out what you think would be cool, and then make sure it fits your character, and then go from there. One of the things that I really like is that in this game you can buy packs of stuff. So I purchased the Adventurers pack, which contains like most of the basic things that I would equip any D&D character with. Your backpack, your bedroll, a couple belt pouches, some chalk, some flint and steel, 50 feet of rope, 2 weeks of rations, some soap, 5 torches, and a water skin. Then I added in a few more things. Thieves' tools, because obviously thieves' tools. A short bow, some padded armor, a short sword, 4 daggers, a bandolier, that's for my daggers, some replacement picks for my thieves' tools, 20 arrows for my short bow, 2 pints of oil, and a sheath for my short sword. So I added all that up. That's how much I spent in gold, silver, and copper. And that's how much I have left over. Then I have some character notes from our session 0, which you could watch over on Master of the Game RPG. When I realized that I wanted to make a goblin, we were emailing back and forth between Juce and the other cast members. And Juce had mentioned that Dave from Nerdarchy wanted to make a goblin. And I was like, sweet, let's be brothers. And we were down. So Scrim's brother is Crick, and Dave is making Crick an artificer. Maybe? I don't know if he changed that or not. An alchemist, an artificer, one of those two. And then we decided that we were from the Bighorn Lobster clan, which doesn't make any sense. It was randomly generated, but whatever. I wanted to have character art. And of course, you could search online for like Goblin, and there's quite a few pictures that are from artists, and they're very good. But I wanted to commission my own. So I reached out to my very own nephew, Christian Henry Allan, who's a fantastic 2D and 3D artist. And I said, dude, can you please make me a goblin? And I gave him a description of what I wanted Scrim to look like. And he came through, and it is awesome. And this is my Scrim. That's my little smiley but scary Scrim. So I'm very excited to be playing in this campaign. And if, by the way, you're interested in any of this stuff, I will have links in the description of the video below, so you can find out more about Pathfinder 2E. You could find out about our campaign that we're going to be doing over on Master the Game. And also, I'll put in the information for my nephew, if in case you're looking for character commission and artwork for your games. I think he's worth your time and money. So that's it for this episode, everybody. Thanks for enjoying this little deviation into the world of Pathfinder 2E. Who knows? Maybe I'll have other character builds within this game system, but it's been pretty fun so far and very educational for me. So thanks again for your support. Make sure you click the like and the subscribe buttons, and we'll see you on the next one.
Well, hello, it's me, Wizzy. I'm back once again to remind you to subscribe and click on the notifications button, and also watch videos that are over there. And then don't forget to tune in to the next episode of whatever show you are just watching, and crafting videos and DM tips and pro tips for vlogging and all sorts of gaming things. And also you could watch Bill eat food and watch other shows featuring Bill. He made me say that because he's a narcissist. Okay, bye.